This is my absolute favorite video to make every single week. It's my wide receiver coverage report. My goal is to just give us a slight edge on either fading or starting a wide receiver based on how they've been performing against zone and man coverage. That's essentially the thesis of this entire video. For the research for this video, I did what I always do every week. I looked up fantasy points allowed by those defenses to wide receivers. I looked up not only the season-long totals, but I also looked up like the last 4 weeks and last 2 weeks because I want to try to hone in on the defenses that have been really bad lately, right? Because it doesn't really help us that much if we only look at the season-long stuff, right? I also then looked at the production that each player has against those schemes and how often those teams play that scheme. So in this video, man, we're going to be talking about 11 players. I have 11 total wide receivers where we can either start them or sit them based on these things that I just listed. I just want to preface, man, or keep in mind that some of these guys are starts regardless, right? They might be your first or second wide receiver. You're going to start them regardless. Totally cool. That's totally fine. The goal of this video is not to tell you to automatically sit some of these guys, but it's just for a little bit more data, man. Maybe you're doing some sports bets, some parlays. You're looking for some players. Maybe you want to smash the unders on them. That's the intent of this video. So let's hop into this without wasting any more of your time. And we start this with Chris Olave, man. So they go up against the Bears in week 7. So the Bears play man coverage the second highest, 41% of the time. Olave's splits against man coverage were not great, man. I looked it up. He has 17 fantasy points against man coverage, 62 fantasy points against zone, man. So he is beaten up on zone. So he gets a lot of his production, a lot of his routes run, a lot of his targets, receptions, fantasy points. So this is going to be a good matchup. The Chicago Bears are a poor defense, especially lately. So this is a good matchup for wide receivers, but Olave being a guy that really performs a lot better against zone, the Bears play the second highest rate of man coverage. So this is one, man, where it's a good matchup, but it's a bad scheme for Olave. So what does that mean, man? Does that mean we're going to be sitting him? Now, Olave has kind of been like a little bit of a opportunity black hole, right? He's getting so many damn targets. His expected fantasy points are like through the roof. He's getting like 20 plus expected fantasy points a game, and he's only scoring about 12 and half PPR, maybe a little bit more in full point PPR. So that's the first player where I'm going to have a little bit of hesitation with him. If you're smashing any sports bets, I'd probably do the under personally. I'd probably want to sit him if I had better options. Now we got to talk about Jaylen Waddle, man. So they're going up against the Cleveland Browns, who have been just a good defense in general, man. They play man coverage, the absolute highest rate in the NFL, 44.8%. And Waddle's splits against man have not been great, man. He has 18.6 fantasy points against man coverage and 67 fantasy points against zone. So he's been absolutely shredding zone. The Miami Dolphins have not seen too much man, but, Waddle has just not been very good against man. That hasn't been his forte. It's a little bit of skewed data because Tyreek Hill went out, so there's not like a full season of data to look at. And I do want to also say that the Browns are currently 13th best against fantasy wide receivers. So in terms of fantasy points allowed. So this is going to be a big test for the Dolphins, man. They're not going to be able to run the ball effectively. They're going to have a tough time throwing the ball. Their number one wide receiver is someone who's really much more effective against zone, which the Browns don't play a lot of. They only play zone about 50% of the time, which sounds like a lot, but that's like, far and away number one in the NFL in terms of how much they play man, right? Like most teams are playing zone 50% plus. It's just then a scale, right? It's a threshold between 50%. So keep that in mind, man. If you're deciding between Waddle, if you're in a league where you only have like one flex and Waddle's like your wide receiver 3, maybe there are some better options, maybe guys that you'll hear further in this video. And now we got to talk about the Chargers, man. This is going to be a tough matchup for the Colts, but we're going to start this video with Josh Downs. So the Chargers currently play zone defense, the second highest in the NFL, 81% of the time, and they're pretty damn good at doing it. Josh Downs specifically, his splits are 17.9 fantasy points against man coverage, while he has 35, almost double of his more than double of his fantasy points against zone defense. So the tale of Josh Downs' season, man, has essentially been that if they're winning a game, if they're just blowing the brakes off of a team, Josh Downs is just not going to be on the field. It sucks, man. I've been high on him the entire year. In the offseason, I was touting Josh Downs. I feel like an absolute blowjob right now for actually telling you guys to draft Josh Downs, but he's been picking it up, man. As you guys can see here, 8 targets, then 7 targets. He gets into the end zone finally in week 6. That was a game where I said in this exact video last week, I said that Josh Downs was a sneaky star. I said that he's somebody that can perform actually really well against this Cardinals team, who are pretty good at stopping the run. I know Jonathan Taylor still had like 120 yards, but keep in mind, Jonathan Taylor had only about like 11 fantasy points going into the fourth quarter. So they did an admirable job. They're still bad against running backs, but nevertheless, Josh Downs did well against the Cardinals. It was in a good game script where it was neutral, if not negative for a lot of the game. And I think against the Chargers, we're going to have a similar type situation. The difference is that the Chargers defense is a lot better, man. So, and just to further accentuate the splits here, 6 receptions, 59 yards against man, 20 receptions, 158 against zone. He's a zone beater, dude. Hold on. We're going to talk about Michael Pittman next. So slot corner, for the Chargers. His name is Tarheeb Still. I've never even heard about this guy, but 22nd ranked cornerback in the NFL completely. So he's in the top 25 in all cornerbacks. He's a very good slot corner. So that's where there's a little bit of hesitation with Downs again. He's going to be going up against an absolute killer. And the thing is, he's also dealing with a concussion at the moment. He's in the protocol. So this is all contingent on a couple things, man. If Josh Downs plays, I think he's somebody we want to be starting because I do envision either a neutral game script or a losing game script. Now, don't get me wrong. The Colts could be completely dominant in this game. The Chargers have not been a dominant team thus far, while the Colts have been. I think they're like number one in scoring, I think in total point, or like number 2 or number 3 in total points. EPA per play has been fantastic for the Colts. So this is going to be a test, man. If Josh Downs can see like 70% of snaps in this game because of the game script, if he can be productive, obviously, if he can play, if he actually plays, right, he's got the concussion going on. So it's a tough matchup, but it's set up for him because it's going to be heavy zone, man. The Chargers play, as I mentioned, second highest in the NFL. So, which brings us next to Michael Pittman. This is another guy that I think it's tough. It's a tough matchup, right, against the Chargers, but he is an absolute stud against zone defense. As I mentioned, man, they play zone second highest, 81% of the time. His splits are crazy. 19 fantasy points against man, 62 fantasy points against zone. Michael Pittman absolutely shreds zone. He's a big body guy. He doesn't separate the best. I think that's why he plays a lot better against zone. He can actually get open in those little holes in the zone, right? So it's a tough matchup. The scheme is perfect for him, but it is a tough one. So that's why Michael Pittman, for me, he's on the fence. He's on the fence between a start and a sit, where it's a difficult matchup, but he eats against this coverage. They're going to be, as I mentioned, potentially in neutral or negative game script. So Josh Downs and Michael Pittman are two guys where schematically, both of them are set up to succeed and set up to feast, but it's a tough matchup, dude. The Chargers are legit. Their defense, their secondary is really good. They got the safeties, the corners. So I would say, if you have Michael Pittman, I'd be a little bit nervous about starting him. This could be a game where they really just lean on Jonathan Taylor. They really lean on Tyler Warren yet again in the end zone or in the red zone. So I'm actually curious what you guys think down below in the comments, man. Are you guys starting Pittman and Downs? Great scheme, but bad matchup. So let me know what you guys think. All right, next we got Courtland Sutton, man. So last week in this exact video, I told you guys to sit Courtland Sutton. He's going up against Sauce Gardner. He's not a very good man coverage beater. So this week, we kind of have a similar type situation, except minus the shadow coverage, most likely. But the Giants play man coverage third highest, man. So 39% of the time, again, doesn't sound like a lot, but that's actually quite a lot to play man. And Sutton's splits have been even worse than Michael Pittman. They're pretty much the same player. I've never seen Pittman and Sutton in the same room. 11 points versus man on the season versus 71 points against zone. This is a massive test. And the Giants are not a slouch defense, man. They're actually a pretty decent defense the last couple weeks against wide receivers. So this is one that's tough, man. I think this is going to be a slugfest. I think this is going to be a defensive game where both the Giants and the Broncos are just going to be struggling to score points. We'll see what happens. I mean, we saw that the Giants actually shredded the Eagles last week. They just have a tough slate of games, right? The Giants had the Eagles and Broncos, then they have the Eagles again next week. So if the Giants can put up points, they might force the Broncos to actually throw the ball. But this is going to be a game where it's going to be like a heavy Broncos defense and run game. And that's why Sutton is somebody that I really want to avoid, man. This is a team, the Giants, they play man coverage, the third highest, and Sutton is not very good against man. Now, that means that they're playing zone, 61% of the time. So in those, when he does see zone, he could still do very well, man. He can still be the main guy. It's just when he doesn't have a shadow cover corner on him, that's when he's effective. But just after coming off of 2 fantasy points last week, this is another one where I'd be a little bit worried about our boy Courtland Sutton, who's been fantastic most of the season. And now let's get a little positive, man. Let's start smiling here. We got Davante Adams. We're going to talk about a couple guys who I think are really good starts coming up. So Davante Adams is the first one. The Jacksonville Jaguars, who they play in Week 7, they play zone 78% of the time. That's the 7th highest in the NFL. And his splits against man and zone are 26 fantasy points against man and 57 fantasy points against zone. And the Jaguars play a shit ton of zone. We got no Puka Nacua. They're a pretty difficult run defense to run on, right? They're 11th best against the run. I think this is going to be a massive Davante Adams game, man. I think he's finally going to have a little bit more chemistry with Stafford. No Puka Nacua, most likely. We still don't really know yet. It's going to be pretty much the Adams and Kyron show, man. And I think Kyron's going to have a difficult time finding running lanes in this game. So we might see a vintage Davante Adams game. This is going to be his chance, man. If he's not cooked, he's looked a little bit cooked in some of these games. Based on PFF grades, he still has been pretty good. Don't get me wrong. But just something is wrong, dude. All these red zone targets. He has like 12 red zone targets on the season. It's been pissing me the fuck off as a Puka Nakua owner. Finally, they started giving Puka more end zone targets, but nevertheless, I think this is gonna be a smash game. They're gonna have to put up points against the Jaguars. This could be a back and forth game. It has a pretty decent over under. You're probably gonna be starting Adams, as I mentioned, but maybe you want to put an over bet on his yardage, maybe even a anytime touchdown in this one. So next we got Xavier Worthy against the Raiders. This is a little bit of a tough one because of Rashee Rice coming back, because Worthy hasn't really done too much this season. He's been okay. He's been serviceable for us, but the Raiders play zone 79% of the time. It's the fifth highest in the NFL, and Worthy's splits against them have been kind of pedestrian, right? 13 points against man, 19.8 points against zone, a slight favorite to zone in terms of production. But what really stood out to me was that he had 33 routes run against man versus 66 against zone. So they haven't seen a lot of man to begin with, but still his splits against both of them have been much higher. He plays a much higher percent against zone. And I just want to say, man, we don't know what Rice is going to do. He could shake everything up. He can move Kelsey back close to the line of scrimmage. Worthy could be split out wide, doing more of the downfield stuff. I think just if I'm theory crafting here, if I'm just talking about the Chiefs, just like theoretically, I'd probably say that Worthy should be split out wide, Kelsey line of scrimmage, or like, your short intermediate stuff, and Rashee Rice as your hybrid. Rashee Rice as your Puka Nakua all over the field. That's how I would envision. Obviously, they're probably not going to do that. They're going to have an X receiver. They're going to have like a Tyquan Thornton or even Hollywood Brown taking the sacrificial down the field stuff. Worthy's going to be maybe the hybrid, while Rashee Rice is going to take that Travis Kelsey role, the role that Travis Kelsey currently has. We just don't know. We just don't know. I'm just saying, I think so far, thus far in the season, Worthy has been very much highly used against zone coverage. And then we got the Raiders playing quite a lot of zone, and they're not very good at it, right? They're just not a very good defense in general. Next, we got Brian Thomas, man, who I traded Jamar Chase for, so I am down horrendous at the moment. So we go back to the Rams-Jaguars game, and the Rams play zone the fifth highest rate, 79% of the time. And Brian Thomas Jr., you would expect him to be a man beater, but thus far in this season, 12.6 points against man coverage versus 50 points against zone. I think if you were to go to like Hayden Winks and Josh Norris over at Underdog, they'd probably tell you that Brian Thomas is just bad against zone, which I think that has definitely been the case. But in terms of production, it seems like he's getting a lot more of his production against the zone. That could be circumstance, could just be that they've played a lot more zone thus far. But I think this can be an explosion game. The Rams secondary has just been their weakness all season, man. They're really good at stopping the run. They just have a good defense in general. But if the Jaguars have a chance to hang with the Rams in this game, it's going to have to come from their wide receivers, man. I don't know. It's going to have to come from ETN getting catches out of the backfield, maybe even Tootin getting a little bit more work. So I think this is another explosion spot here for Brian Thomas. He would have had about 30 fantasy points last week if Travis Hunter wasn't the worst wide receiver in the NFL. But nevertheless, man, we're going to talk next about Tetairoa McMillan. So this is another one. This is a little bit tough. They get the Jets this week. We just saw Sauce Gardner in like back-to-back weeks be really good, dude. He's looked really good this season. And the Jets play man coverage 31% of the time. That's eighth highest in the NFL. Tetairoa McMillan, historically, this season has been a man beater. 39% target share against man. His production has been pretty much not equal, but he's been good against both, right? He's just their best wide receiver in general. But the 39% target share against man coverage, this is a massive test. This is a massive test. Very similar to Michael Pittman, very similar to Courtland Sutton in this one, where schematically it's set up for him. He beats man. The Jets play a lot of man, but they have Sauce Gardner. They're going to have the cover corner in this one. So this is going to be a situation where if McMillan, who is a dude who can beat man, but can he beat Sauce Gardner? Right? He's going to get a high target share. Maybe not, dude. We saw Courtland Sutton get only like 2 targets last week against man coverage against Sauce Gardner. So this is one where if you believe in Tetairoa McMillan, that he is a man beater, he can beat Sauce Gardner, he can get open, then you're going to be starting McMillan. You're probably going to be starting him either way, right? He's just been too consistent, I believe. I mean, consistently kind of pedestrian, but he's been consistent, right? So can he piece it together? Can he get the touchdown with the yardage and the volume, right? Against Sauce Gardner, I wouldn't bet on it. I would personally hit the unders on his yardage. I'd hit the under on his receptions as well, but you guys got to do what you got to do, man. If you have Tet and you got to start him, dude, start him. Obviously, do what you got to do. But I mean, after seeing what they did to Courtland Sutton, how he was just kind of removed from the game plan, I'm a little bit worried. I'm a little bit worried about Tetairoa McMillan in this one. But now we move along to Nico Collins, man. So the Seahawks, we got 2 players actually to talk about from this Seahawks-Houston game. So the Seahawks are playing zone coverage 80% of the time. That is 3rd highest in the NFL. Nico Collins, his specific splits are 12 fantasy points against man, 59 points against zone. Now, I want to know from you guys, man. I always thought Nico Collins was a dude who can beat man coverage. I thought he was this Julio Jones type who can just absolutely shred cornerbacks, get around them, and just moss them. It looks like this season he's doing a lot better against zone coverage. It looks like he's improved in getting open in those holes. And the Seahawks play a shit ton of zone. He's great against zone this season, and their secondary is banged up. I don't know what the situation is with Witherspoon and with Tariq Woolen. If they play, maybe we temper the expectations, but if they're out again, or if any of them are out again, this is another smash start for our boy Nico Collins, man. This can be the game, dude. This can be the 2-touchdown Nico Collins game if their secondary remains banged up. It's set up for him where they play a shit ton of zone. He's been shredding zone. And, you know, the Texans looked actually pretty good before the bye week. So this is a smash start potentially. I think even with Witherspoon and Woolen back, I think I might still like Collins in this matchup, dude. The Seahawks have just not been very good on the season. Their secondary has just not been what we thought they would be. And then we got to talk about Christian Kirk, man, who's been pretty much a chingus the whole season, a bust-out Magoo, if you will. But, you know, he's ramping up a little. He could have had a very long touchdown catch last game, but he goes out of bounds like just before the end zone. But similar type of situation. The Seahawks, as I mentioned with Nico Collins, they play zone the third highest 80% of the time. Kirk has a 20% target rate against zone. Obviously not a lot of production. He hasn't really done jack fuck all the entire season, but 4 catches for 64, man. And coming out of the bye week, they did say they want to get Higgins and Noel more involved. So this could be fully wrong. This can be a complete swing and a miss, right? But if it's still Kirk, and maybe they want to use him a little bit more to potentially shop him and trade him, right? I think I'll say Kirk is the prototypical trade candidate, right? 2 promising rookies behind him that they're bringing up to speed. He's the guy that I can imagine them shopping at the trade deadline, right? Like he's an older wide receiver. They brought him in this season. They're not really that big on him. So I think that there's a chance they use him this game. He's good against zone. He produces just enough for them to, you know, to dangle him out there for a potential trade candidate. So whether you're going to start Christian Kirk or you want to pick him up as a speculative ad just to see what happens, maybe he gets traded. I like Christian Kirk this week until I see Noel and Higgins take more of the work like they say they want to do. I'm just going to assume Christian Kirk can eat against this zone defense just for one more week. That's a deep one though, man. If you are in like a 32-man league, or if you're like me who just sucks at drafting and Christian Kirk's actually a viable start for you, then maybe I'd be starting a guy like Christian Kirk this week, man. I might even consider it in one of my most important leagues. Actually, I can't. Somebody already picked him up. So yeah, fuck me, right? That does it for the video, guys. I know it was a mouthful. I know it was quite a lot of data, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, though. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for giving me your time. I genuinely appreciate it. As I say every single day, every single video. If you want some of your questions answered, sit starts, trade advice, anything, man, we have a dope Discord community that's growing. Dope group of guys, a lot of sharps in the league, man. We help each other out. It's community driven. It's not just me lecturing everybody. So make sure you guys do join that. Introduce yourself. Let us know that you're new around here and you will be welcomed with open arms. That does it for this video. Like it and subscribe if you want to catch more of it, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.